Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I am Anil Thomas. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israel to join fresh Gaza peace talks in Qatar today. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says Hamas offer based on unrealistic demands. Russian elections turnout surpasses 2018 levels of 67.5%. Three challenges in the fray to stop Putin from getting another 6-year term. Maiden title beacons Delhi and Bangalore in the battle for glory in the Women's Premier League. Meg Lannon's Delhi play host to Mandana's Bangalore. Well, as Israeli-Hamas armed conflict continues to rage in Gaza, hectic parleys are underway to strike a new ceasefire deal. Israeli delegation led by the head of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency will hold talks with mediators in Doha. This comes after Hamas presented a new proposal for a ceasefire with an exchange of hostages and prisoners. Efforts to secure a ceasefire before Islam's holy month of Ramadan started a week ago repeatedly failed, with Israel saying it plans to launch a new offensive in Hamas' stronghold, Rafah. US and Jordan, meanwhile, dropped more aid into Gaza in a joint humanitarian aid operation. Bundles of Jordanian food supplies were among the items dropped during the operation. United States began airdrops of aid on the 2nd of March and is planning a US military sea lift of assistance from the island of Cyprus. A second aid ship loaded with food and other supplies for Gaza was ready to sail off soon after the first vessel successfully delivered humanitarian resources. The second ship with 240 tons of aid was moved at Larnaca port, awaiting a signal to sail. US-based charity World Central Kitchen, which arranged the mission with the UAE and Spanish charity Open Arms, with support from the Cypriot government. They said that the new shipment include pallets of canned food and bulk products. WCK said that the second boat also had 2 forklifts and a crane to assist with future maritime deliveries in Gaza. A cruise ship would accompany the cargo boat with 8 workers to operate the machinery and offload the aid. Almost 200 tons of food arrived in the enclave late on Friday, the first shipment in a new aid route to the Gaza. In the first mission, the charity offloaded onto a makeshift jetty WCK built from the rubble of destroyed buildings. Meanwhile, a World Central Kitchen staff member posted a video showing the last pallets of aid being unloaded off the first Gaza aid supply ship early on Sunday morning. 200 tons of food was delivered in northern Gaza on Friday night as humanitarian aid.
All right, there it is, the last 2 pallets of food getting loaded onto the last truck. Behind me, off of the barge, is the Open Arms boat back there. 200 tons of food delivered here in northern Gaza. It's going to go up to Gaza City.
Well, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz urged Israel to allow humanitarian aid access to Gaza on a larger scale. On his 2-day visit to the Middle East, Scholz said, as he met Jordan's King Abdullah and also met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, German Chancellor Scholz stressed on the need for aid to reach Gaza and said their Air Force dropped pallets of 4 tons of relief goods by air into the enclave on Saturday.
Fest an der Seite Israels bei der Verteidigung des eigenen.
We are standing firmly by Israel's side in defense of its own country, and Israel has every right to defend itself against the Hamas attack. At the same time, it is important that the rules of international law are respected. It is about ensuring that civilian casualties are avoided, that humanitarian aid reaches Gaza, and that a long-term solution is found. I will do all of this intensively during this visit, and that is why it is necessary now, precisely at this point in time.
Humanitäre Hilfe nach Gaza.
Well, thousands of Israelis rallied in Tel Aviv on Saturday, calling for the government to make a deal with terrorist group Hamas to secure their release. The crowds gathered at Tel Aviv's Hostet Square with speakers including the French and German ambassadors to Israel. The rally ended with organizers calling on participants to march to military and defense military headquarters after Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announced that he would have convened a meeting with top defense officials to discuss efforts to return the hostages. Well, moving on, the three-day Russian presidential election is concluding today. There are 4 candidates running for Russia's president in Russia's 8th presidential election. If Russian President Vladimir Putin completes a new 6-year term, he will overtake Joseph Stalin to become Russia's longest-serving leader. More in this detailed report.
Russia's 8th presidential election, which began on Friday, concludes on Sunday. The election result is expected to keep President Vladimir Putin in power for another 6 years. This would enable him to overtake Joseph Stalin to become Russia's longest-serving leader. Besides Russian President Vladimir Putin, the other 3 candidates in election were leader of the Liberal Democratic Party Leonid Slutsky, Vladislav Davenkov from Russia's New People Party, and Nikolai Kharitonov, the Russian Communist Party's candidate. Ukraine war has cast a shadow over voting in the election. More than 114 million Russians were eligible to vote, including what Moscow calls its new territories. Residents of the Russian-controlled parts of Ukraine too cast their ballots on Friday.
I remember it all well. All of it I remember well. It was all difficult and hard. No water, no light, no gas, no food, nothing. We have been surviving. My flat, it's a totally destroyed house. I have been living there with a housemate for 27 years. What have left of it are just walls. No roof, nothing else.
United States, United Kingdom and UN on Friday condemned Russian efforts to conduct its presidential election in occupied areas of Ukraine.
We continue to condemn the sham election in Ukraine's temporarily occupied territory for what it is, one in a pattern of failed attempts to justify the unjustifiable.
While on the other hand, Moscow accused Ukraine of using air attacks to try to sabotage the election. Besides, more than 50 United Nations member states have condemned Russian efforts to conduct its presidential election in occupied areas of Ukraine on Friday. The counting of votes begins once the election concludes. It continues until the results are finalized. The final results will be confirmed no later than March 28 by Russia's Central Election Commission and will be announced within 3 days of confirmation. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
Well, DD India's Dasha Chernyshova has the latest from Moscow.
Well, up to this moment, we understand that over 65% of Russians have already had a chance to cast their ballots in the presidential election. It is the 3rd day and the final day of this voting. This is the countrywide turnout. Remember, Russia has 11 time zones, so we are expecting the polls to close at 8 p.m. in the evening. Moscow will be one of the last time zones where the polling stations will close. The next one will be Kaliningrad, so it is by 9 p.m. Moscow time or 6 p.m. GMT that the polls will eventually close in all the polling stations across the Russian territory. Some exit polls are expected to come up shortly. The voting process will also begin at that very moment, and the first results are expected to come in the matter of hours. And obviously it is in the morning of Monday when we understand that more precise results will be available available to the wider public. At the same time, we understand that there have been certain irregularities reported across the Russian Federation, but they are not expected to somehow influence the impact the outcome of this election. It is indeed expected that President Vladimir Putin will secure yet another term as president of Russia, and the inauguration will be taking place later this year. That will be taking place in May. But as polls are expected to close, we understand that what worries the authorities here is the numbers. By what margin Vladimir Putin will be securing his new term, as well as how high the turnout would be, as many political scientists say it is important for the Russian authorities to make sure that the turnout is high, because that will be sort of legitimizing the ongoing course, including the Russian stance on Ukraine.
Well, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu ordered the Black Sea Navy on Sunday to strengthen the protection of its facilities and conduct regular drills on how to repel attacks on its ships, the Interfax news agency has reported. Video released by the Russian Defense Ministry showed Shoigu attending meetings with Navy officials, including Admiral Alexander Moishev, the Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Navy and former commander of the Black Sea Fleet. Shoigu visited the Navy's command center on Sunday, and Russia's Black Sea Navy have come under frequent attacks from Ukrainian forces. Long-range Ukrainian attack drones launched by SBU Domestic Security Service have hit 12 Russian oil refineries during the conflict so far. Officials in the southern Russian region of Krasnodar said that Ukrainian drones have attacked the Slavansk oil refinery 70 kilometers north of the regional capital overnight. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces said that Russian air attacks damaged agricultural enterprises and destroyed several industrial buildings in the Black Sea port of Odessa overnight. Russia launched 16 drones and 7 missiles. Ukrainian Air Forces posted on social media messaging apps that 14 drones were destroyed over the Odessa region. It is not immediately clear what happened to the 2 drones that were not destroyed or whether the missiles hit their targets. The Air Force said that the missile targeted Ukraine's Kharkiv, Donetsk and Chernihiv regions. 26-year-old Andre Gordon, the man accused of killing 3 people in Fall Townships of Pennsylvania, United States, on Saturday morning is in custody after evading law enforcement for hours as police mobilized across 2 states, shutting down a parade and an amusement park and ordering some residents to stay in their homes. Police officers said that the suspected will remain in custody in New Jersey before being extradited to Pennsylvania. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Iceland's violent volcanic flare-up triggers state of emergency. World turns green for the celebration of St. Patrick's Day. Ed Sheeran sings Punjabi song Lava with Diljit Dosanjh. Mumbai fans go wild.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Anil Thomas. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar dismissed the criticism from the United States regarding the Citizenship Amendment Act, asserting that the remarks were made without a proper understanding of the law's historical background. While speaking at a conclave in the national capital, Dr. S. Jaishankar further stressed that the CAA was introduced to tackle the challenges arising from the partition and remarked that the global response seems to ignore the historical context of partition.
If you hear the comments from many parts of the world, it is as though the partition of India never happened. And that there were no consequential problems which the CAA is supposed to address. So if you take a problem, remove all the historical context from it, sanitize it and make it into a political correctness argument and say, oh, I have principles and don't you have principles? I have principles too. And one of my principles is obligation to people who were let down at the time of partition.
Well, CEOs of the Confederation of Indian Industry, that CII association, met the visiting Prime Minister of Bhutan, Shering Togbe, in Mumbai on Sunday. The CEOs assured Confederation's support towards strengthening economic relations with a focus on key sectors of collaboration, which include tourism, healthcare, renewable energy, agriculture and smart irrigation between Bhutan and India. Bhutan's Prime Minister Togbe is currently on a visit to India. Officials at the Indian High Commission in Tanzania said trade between India and Tanzania is expected to exceed $7 billion this fiscal year. This will exceed the previous record set last year when trade between both countries was over $6.4 billion. DD India's Isaac Lucando has the latest numbers.
Tanzania is poised to become India's largest trading partner in Africa. According to Tanzania's government, India is one of the top 5 investors in the Tanzanian economy, having invested over $3.7 billion in 2022 alone. Tanzanian exports to India have surged, aided by India's duty-free scheme, covering over 90% of Tanzanian goods entering India. Popular Tanzanian exports to India include gold, dried legumes, coconuts, and cashew nuts. In return, Tanzania imports scooters, motorcycles, electrical transformers, and petroleum products from India. The boost in bilateral trade is attributed to a dozen Indian investors entering the Tanzanian market in the past year. Last month, Indian billionaire Gautam Adani expressed interest in expanding his business ventures into Tanzania. The Tanzanian government credits the smooth, decades-long bilateral relations for the surge in trade, with Indian-assisted development projects worth $1.2 billion already underway. Isaac Lucando in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
Well, some weather update now from across the globe, as spewing smoke and bright orange lava into the air is in sharp contrast against the dark night visuals of a volcano that erupted in Iceland on Saturday for the 4th time since December 2023. Keflavik Airport and regional airports in Iceland were not impacted and remain fully operational. The nearby Blue Lagoon geothermal spa, one of Iceland's major tourist attractions, closed as it did during the previous eruptions. Authorities have warned for weeks that an eruption was imminent on the Reykjanes Peninsula, just south of Iceland's capital, Reykjavik. Well, drought has left 18,000 people without water in Brazil's Mocosei. Extreme drought in western Brazil has pushed family farmers to shift to different areas as prolonged dry spell has wreaked havoc, disrupting the natural habitat of the region, causing an environmental emergency with food and water shortage. Instability in the water supply service was caused by a drought in Roraima River. A large area of eastern Argentina soars underwater after heavy rains have caused flooding. The weather authorities of Argentina have issued a yellow alert with possibility of heavy rains battering the regions. Streets of eastern Argentina are completely submerged, with locals wading through knee-high water and cars stranded. Floodwaters also invaded homes of residents, damaging their household appliances along with furniture. At least 3 people were killed and dozens injured after severe weather and tornadoes swept across parts of Ohio and Indiana overnight on Friday. The toll is expected to rise as authorities begin to investigate the scope of the damage. responders were checking for victims. The search was initially hampered by downed power lines, gas leaks, and a mass of destruction. Ohio residents cleaned up after one or more deadly tornadoes. Manhattan's Fifth Avenue in the New York City transformed into a verdant spectacle on Saturday as throngs of revelers adorned the vibrant Emerald Grove, gathered to applaud the multitude of participants in the traditional St. Patrick's Day parade. Marching bands, performers and politicians all walked the parade route, joining in the jubilant celebration of Irish heritage, attracting a diverse array of attendees from across the United States and beyond. St. Patrick's Day falls on Sunday, that's 17th of March, promising further merriment and cultural observance. A quick look at other stories making news. The Election Commission of India on Sunday changed the date of counting of votes in the assembly polls of northeastern states of Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim from the 4th of June to the 2nd of June. The decision was made as the team of two assemblies is still the 2nd of June. An Indian Air Force C-17 aircraft executed a precision airborne drop of two combat rubberized riding craft boats along with Indian Navy's Marcos in the Arabian Sea as part of an ongoing anti-piracy Operation Sankalp. The operation was carried out to rescue the crew of bulk carrier vessel MV Ruin. Indian Air Force M17 V5 helicopters undertook multiple Bombi bucket operations on Sunday in its continued efforts to douse the raging forest fires in southern India's Nilgiri district in Tamil Nadu. The helicopters have discharged over 16,000 litres of water to control the spread of the fire in collaboration with the Forest Department and the state administration. Well, time for some sports updates. The much-awaited title match of the Women's Premier League will be played between Delhi and Bangalore in New Delhi on Super Sunday. Let's take a look at this big match preview.
Unlimited action across two cities, multiple nail-biting affairs and craziness all around, the 4 weeks of Women's Premier League 2024 was no short of entertainment. The stage is set at the Arun Jaitley Stadium in Delhi for the final clash between Meg Lanning's Delhi Capitals and Smriti Mandhana-led Royal Challengers Bangalore. Both teams will battle against each other on Sunday night as the Queendom of Cricket will be ruled by a new champion. It could have been a repeat of last year's final with Delhi Capitals once again taking on Mumbai Indians, but Smriti Mandhana-led Royal Challengers Bangalore pulled off a heist and snatched victory from the jaws of defeat in the eliminator against Mumbai Indians on Friday, reaching the Women's Premier League finals for the first time. Meanwhile, Delhi Capitals has been successful in reaching the finals for the second consecutive year. In this season, Delhi Capitals has won both their meetings against RCB so far. In the first fixture, Lanning and Shefali powered Delhi Capitals to 223 for 2. Meanwhile, the highest total for RCB versus DC was 180 for 7. The journey for Delhi Capitals has been fantastic in this tournament. It is expected that Delhi will learn from its past mistakes and perform strongly in the finals. Whoever lifts the 2024 Women Premier League trophy will end the long-awaited title drought for both franchises. Sports Desk, DD India.
Well, on to tennis. Defending champion Carlos Alcaraz of Spain and Russian fourth seed Daniil Medvedev will clash in Sunday's final of the ATP event in Indiana Wells. Medvedev prevailed in 2 hours 23 minutes to set up a rematch of the 2023 final against Carlos Alcaraz after they both prevailed in intense three-setters on Saturday. Alcaraz beat Australian Open champion Jannik Sinner of Italy 1-6, 6-3, 6-2 in the other semi-final. Alcaraz earned his 11th straight win at the Indiana Wells and ended Sinner's remarkable 19-match winning streak. Medvedev will take on Alcaraz in the Indiana Wells final later tonight. Well, Ireland held firm to beat Scotland 17-13 in a tight match at the Aviva Stadium on Saturday to clinch back-to-back Six Nation titles for the second time in 11 years. After England denied them a bid for successive Grand Slams last week, a sluggish Ireland looked at the risk of relinquishing their grip on the title and giving the English something to play for in Paris after eking out an unconvincing 7-6 halftime lead. The victory kept Ireland too far ahead of second-place England, who play France in the final game of the championship later on Saturday. Scotland finished with 2 wins and 3 losses. Well, British singer Ed Sheeran treated fans to Punjabi lyrics as the star performed alongside Indian star or singer Diljit Dosanjh during a concert in Mumbai on Saturday. Well, Ed Sheeran singing Punjabi. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. We're going to be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Anil Thomas from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.